I moved to Austin because I needed to get away from my stepfather. In his opinion, showing concern was to say that I was gay all because I wanted to study music and do well in school. I told my friend Josh about this, who is really gay, and he laughed. "Brendan," he said, tilting his head, "you're just not cool enough to be like that." He was right. Everything was lousy at home. I couldn't invite Josh because he's gay. I couldn't invite Floyd because he's black. But I didn't want to call Carrie because my stepfather was staring at her. The only friend he liked was Jimmy, but there was something wrong with this guy. Mother. Even now I can hear her voice, and she would be angry at me for not telling the whole story. My birth father died when I was 6. The doctor said it was an aneurysm. He just suddenly fell at work. I remember him as a cheerful person, but there are few specific memories. He seems to have worked hard. But I remember one thing for sure. When I was 4, he gave me a toy guitar, and I was absolutely delighted. They say I played it non-stop, driving my parents crazy. And when I turned 8, my mother gave me a real guitar. It was a small 3/4 Yamaha, and I adored her. I hugged my mother tightly, and she said with tears in her eyes that my father would be happy to see me with her. After his death, my mother was, of course, devastated. But Dad had thought of everything, so financially we were fine while she was going through her grief. Before his death, she worked as a secretary in a real estate agency and then received a realtor's license. She loved it and did well, so we were able to stay in our house. Life went on, there were only 2 of us. I don't know where she met Rodney, call me Rod Canton. I was 12 when she sat me down and asked how I would feel about her going on a date. We lived together for 6 years, and of course, I didn't like it. Mom let me talk, and then calmly explained that she would never stop loving Dad, but she felt lonely. I didn't want to hear this, but it was also unpleasant to see her sad because of my childhood insult, so I pretended to accept it. A year later, she and Rodney got married. At first, he wasn't that bad, but we didn't get along with each other. I think my mother hoped that I would accept him as a father. Maybe if I was younger, this could have happened. He probably tried, but I definitely didn't. I knew it upset my mother, but I couldn't shake the feeling that he was taking something from me. And then he really took it from me. When I was 14, my mother was diagnosed with breast cancer and died on the eve of my 15th birthday. Since then, birthdays have been a difficult experience for me. Before she died, she made me promise that I would study and not disappoint her. I wasn't going to let her down. I had a perfect GPA of 4.0. Rodney, I think, really loved his mother because he lost her very hard. But to me, after her death, he just stopped trying. Over the next 3 years, he turned into a lazy, always drunk guy who lounged in his chair and mocked me. In my last year of school, I was 1.73 meters tall, weighed about 68 kilograms, suffered from acne, wore terrible glasses, and hid my blue eyes behind them. I was a classic band nerd, only our band rehearsed in Carrie's garage rather than in a stadium. Her mom was cool, and we got along well. She was probably like a second mother to me. I think Carrie understood this, but was understanding. We were like thieving magpies, an inseparable four. I played guitar, Carrie Fisher was the vocalist and played keys, Jimmy Rogers played bass, and Floyd Jackson played drums. Josh liked to pretend that he was our manager. We didn't mind. He spoke passionately about the cool concerts that awaited us as soon as his secret deal fell through. Carrie was my best friend. Josh was right behind her. Most often, the 3 of us hung out. We were terrible, let's face it. We never got a single gig, but we had fun. Carrie was my height and weighed maybe 5 kilograms more than me. She had wavy brown hair that was usually tied into a tight ponytail and needed washing. She was just lazy. I didn't care in my eyes, she was beautiful. I loved her voice. If either of us had played better, her vocals could have taken us somewhere. I wanted to impress her, so I tried my best on the guitar. Thank you, YouTube, because my stepfather was not going to pay for lessons. I think I've gotten pretty good. At least enough to take music as a second major, when he received an academic scholarship to the University of Texas at Austin. Austin turned out to be completely different from our small town in the suburbs of Rochester. My mom and I lived on the outskirts of a good school district. Otherwise, I'd probably still be shoveling snow and dodging beer cans flying at me. About halfway through our final year of school, I finally plucked up the courage after a lot of advice from Josh and asked Carrie out. I stuttered, I could barely look at her, but she said, "Okay, Brendan, I don't mind." I was already preparing for a refusal, so when my stupid brain finally realized her answer, I only squeezed out, "What? That's how eloquent I am." She laughed. I said I'd go with you, idiot. What, where, and when? I blinked. Maybe we should go to Fireside. This is a burger place. And then let's go ice skating. On Friday, at 6 in the evening. Are you asking or telling me, idiot? I blinked again. Wake up, Brendan. It's me, Carrie. We've been friends since 5th grade, remember? I shook my head. Yes, exactly, sorry. This conversation sounded completely different in my head. And that, I didn't have a car, so she picked me up in my mom's minivan. We had dinner at Fireside and then went to Menden Park, hoping to ride 100-Acre Pond. As we drove, Carrie asked, "So what prompted you to invite me, Bren?" "Well, we are together almost all the time." "Yes, I know, Carrie. You are my best friend. I think I would have invited you earlier if you weren't her." She glanced at me, then turned her attention back to the road. "I'll just lay it out as it is, okay?" She nodded. "I don't know if I told you before, but I always thought you were beautiful, even before I realized that girls were something special. But it's not just that. You're smart, you're easy to be around. I just like being around you." I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "When my mother died, you became something like family to me. But I never thought of you as a sister. That would be weird, but..." Carrie took my hand. "Bren, you're talking nonsense." I swallowed and continued. "Yes, sorry, it's just, you know what my stepfather is like. And by the beginning of my senior year, I realized that I needed to change something." We fell silent until we reached the park. Carrie turned off the engine and turned to me. I turned around too. "Carrie, I don't know what will happen next. I probably won't go to college unless a miracle happens. You are the best thing in my life." I looked at her and almost begged her to understand. She looked at me for a long time, then shook her head slightly and smiled wryly. "What should I do with you, Bren?" I smiled uncertainty. "I liked the way you held my hand." That's what we did. We put on our skates and skated holding hands. They glanced sideways at each other, thinking that the other wouldn't notice, caught their glances, and turned away in embarrassment. We were terribly ridiculous, but in the best way. At some point, we stopped in the middle of the pond and just looked at each other. I took both her hands and pulled her closer. My heart was pounding, she could probably hear it. "So who should bend over first?" "I'm not sure," I asked uncertainty. "Half each?" she suggested, peering into mine with wide eyes. I nodded and leaned towards her. She did too, and we met in the middle. We just pressed our lips together, and I was gone. We were inseparable for the rest of the year. Well, it's not that it was different before, but now everything has changed. Carrie's mother noticed this and looked at us with some special softness in her eyes. The physical side of our relationship developed slowly, despite the fact that we were already adults. "Sorry, Bren, I'm not ready yet," she whispered. "Yes, of course, Carrie. Everything is fine. Sorry." "It's okay. I like what we do," she smiled. "Me too." I smiled back, probably like a complete idiot, and nodded. When it did happen, it was awkward and clumsy and innocent and wonderful. I told her that I love her. She said she loves me. But even after that, we did not rush headlong into the pool of passion. We still spent time as before, rehearsing, hanging out, just being together. We were friends and lovers. I think our, not so much restraint, rather, awareness in the relationship only increased my admiration for her. All I knew was that I didn't want this year to end. But it's over. But before that I received a letter. Or rather, several letters. but the most important came from the University of Texas at Austin. Dear Mr. Barnes, congratulations. We are pleased to inform you of your acceptance. I stared at it and then slowly rode my bike towards Carrie's house. He just sat on the porch and sat. She noticed me. Hey, Bren, what are you doing here? Come in. I just silently handed her the letter. She sat down next to him, opened it, read it, and gasped. Oh my God, Brendan, this is amazing. Full scholarship. She looked at me and gasped again. Damn, are you crying? I squeezed her in a desperate hug. No. She pulled back to look at me. Bren, dear, what happened? I can't leave you, Carrie. I can't. Oh, Bren. She hugged me tightly, and I buried my head in her shoulder. Yes, it was a pathetic sight, but I simply could not imagine life without her. If we are far from each other, it means we are not together. And not being with Carrie seemed like the end of the world. We just held each other in our arms for a long time. Finally, Carrie pulled back a little, looked me in the eyes, and said, Let's not think about it now. Come in, Mom will be late today. She took my hand and led me to her room. Ultimately, we still had to talk about it. I was smart, but not particularly wise. Carrie was just as smart, if not smarter, to be honest, but luckily she also had wisdom. She convinced me that such a chance should not be missed. If you didn't even intend to go there, why did you apply at all? She asked. I didn't know what to answer except, I just wanted to get away from my stepfather. Then we were still just friends, and it seemed to me that this was just a dream that would never come true. I offered to join her in sunny Geneseo State University of New York at Geneseo. I said a lot of stupid things. We argued and argued until she finally said, Brendan, if you don't take this chance, you will regret it for the rest of your life. And one day you will start blaming me for this. She really was very wise. I thought about her words for a long time, and no matter how hard it was for me, I realized that she was right. So in August, I packed up my few belongings, and Carrie drove me to the bus station. We hardly spoke. We've already discussed everything we could over the past few days. I just said, I love you, Carrie, and I will always love you. I looked into her eyes as sincerely as I could. This is a promise. No matter what happens, I love you to infinity. She smiled sadly. And I love you to infinity plus one. And I got on the bus. We tried to keep in touch, but studying took up all our time. I didn't have much money, and I had nowhere to go home to Rochester, so I stayed in Texas for the holidays. Our conversations became less and less frequent. I received a card from her for Christmas. For birthdays, too. I sent her the same ones. Sometimes I talked to Josh. About 2 months into my sophomore year, he told me that Carrie was seeing someone. Not serious, but still. It hurt, but I understood. We were separated by 1,600 miles, and we lived different lives. Now my home was in Texas, and hers was in Rochester. I made some good friends in Austin and played regularly in a local band. I found a part-time job at a construction company, and the owner, Jeff Mitchell, took a liking to me. When he found out that I was studying business, he said, Learn everything you can while you work with the guys on the construction site. I think he was keeping a close eye on me or asking someone to report to him. Because at the beginning of my senior year, he said, If you want a job after graduation, it's yours. Office, of course, he added with a laugh. I started going to the gym. Forced myself. Physical activity, working outdoors, and eating well helped me get rid of acne. And during my 3rd year, I grew by as much as 15 centimeters. I changed my glasses to contact lenses. And suddenly, it turned out that there were a lot of girls around who were interested in me. I dated someone, but nothing serious came of it. I ended up graduating with a bachelor's degree in business administration with a minor in music. I went to work for Mitchell Construction. One of my boss Jeff's requirements was that all employees be bilingual. He hired local teachers, and classes were held right in the office. I also continued to go to the gym and even worked out at one of the local boxing gyms, where I sometimes sparred, but mostly just trained. About a year passed like this. Work, occasionally performed at concerts, talked with friends, and sometimes went on dates. Then we, or rather the company, were asked to build a new residential complex in the New Sweden area, and the boss said that I would go with him to a meeting with the developer and realtors. It was a warm Tuesday afternoon when we all gathered in the developer's conference room. He was almost as nice as we were in the office. Bob, my boss, and I were there. He introduced me to Frank Lewis, a real estate developer, and his assistant, Sophia Pena. I shuddered when I saw her. He is about 163 centimeters, long black hair, dark eyes, and an even golden dark skin tone without a single flaw. And although she had a truly luxurious figure, C-cup breasts, a perfect ass and elastic, sculpted hips and calves, like a gymnast, the most striking feature was the perfect Aztec nose, which surprisingly harmoniously suited her face. Maybe I'm exaggerating, but she was truly stunning. When I finally shut my mouth and was able to say hello, Bob introduced the two realtors as well. Walt Jeffries shook my hand, and the other one, who turned out to be a Hispanic man about 175 centimeters tall, just watched. I think I heard his name was Ray Gutierrez. After the meeting, I tried to catch up with Sophia, but I saw Ray open the door for her, putting his hand on the small of her back. She turned around to tell him something and noticed me, but I just walked in the other direction. A couple of weeks passed when Sophia called me to arrange a further meeting. I came to her office. "Ray won't be there?" I asked, apparently not in such a carefree tone as I wanted. She grinned. "No, this is only for construction. He doesn't need to know." However, there was so much subtext in this last phrase of hers. I tried to concentrate on her words and not pay attention to the hints. After we discussed work issues, I asked, "Sophia, before I make a fool of myself, do you have something going on with Ray? You can say it's none of my business, but I wanted to invite you for a drink, and I don't want to get into a stupid situation." It seemed to me that I was approaching the question cunningly, but I was wrong. She just said, "This, not yours, case," and held the door, indicating that the conversation was over. I was surprised. Understood. Okay. I got up and went out. As I was leaving, I felt her touch my hand. Looking at her, I saw a sensual smile on her face. "I thought you wanted to invite me for a drink?" she asked slyly. I looked at her puzzled. "But you just said—" She interrupted me. "I said what I do with Ray is none of your business." She smiled again. "And what I do with you is not his." I thought for a second and answered, "You know what, Sophia? I'm performing at Katie Elder's bar on Friday night. My buddy Jason is holding it. If you want, come and we can have a drink there." I think I caught her by surprise, and she smiled. "Oh, so you're also a musician, a man of many talents." I laughed, realizing that it didn't sound that cool. "I will send you the information you asked for by the end of the business day on Thursday, okay? Or maybe I'll really see you on Friday." Friday night, we played a mix of new country and 70s Southern rock. A decent number of people had gathered at the bar. Katie Elders had a small dance floor that was almost full. I almost missed her, but as soon as she entered, I realized from the movement of heads in the crowd that it was Sophia. She sat down at a high table in the corner. She was wearing a short skirt and a light sleeveless t-shirt, suitable for a warm evening. She had to work hard to sit on the high chair. Almost immediately, a student from the University of Texas, by the looks of it, approached her and asked her to dance. She jumped off the chair, and they headed to the dance floor. We must give her credit. He tried to press against her, but she deftly pushed him away. After the song, he wanted to continue, but Sophia just shook her head and returned to her table. Then another guy tried to buy her a drink, but she just glanced at him. In general, I hope every girl knows that you can't take a drink from a stranger if it's already in an open glass. She danced a lot, but never more than one dance in a row with the same partner. It seemed to me that she drank bottled water and always ordered it herself at the bar. She, of course, saw me on stage, but for some reason she didn't let me know that she noticed me until we took the first break. I went to her, and naturally, someone was already standing with her this time, a stocky guy who looked like an American football player who was chatting with her about something. I just came up and said, "Hi, darling, sorry I'm late," and kissed her on the cheek. "Who is your friend?" I turned to this jock. Sophia hugged my neck, looked at the guy, and shrugged. We both stared at him until he realized it was time for him to leave. We laughed. I was about to move away, but she continued to hold me. "You promised to buy me a drink," she smiled. "It's true." I took her hand. "Come on, I want to introduce you to someone." We made our way to the bar, and I shouted to Jason, "Hey, lazy guy, how long will I wait for you to pour us something?" Sophia stared at me with round eyes, and I winked at her. Jason walked over and looked at Sophia with interest. "Sophia, this is my friend. I really don't know if he deserves this title, Jason. He is the owner of this establishment. Jason, this is Sophia." She looked around and said, "I like it here, Brendan." Jason smiled. "Today you are drinking at the expense of the establishment, dear. I'm very glad to meet you, and if you suddenly decide that he is not in my direction, an idiot, feel free to contact me." "Oh, I already know," she smiled. "It's painful to hear, of course." We chatted throughout the break, continuing to get to know each other until I had to return to the stage again. "We have one more set left, about 45 minutes, then I'll finish. If you want, you can stay and we can talk." She thought about it. "No, it was fun, but I think I'll go home. I wouldn't mind repeating it sometime when you're not at work." Well, I won't lie, I was a little disappointed, but I liked the idea of the next date. After that, we began to meet regularly, at first just for a drink, and then for dinner once or twice a week, went dancing, to the cinema. Soon they began spending weekends together. After our second dinner, which was probably our fourth date if you count the evening at the bar, I walked her to the door. She turned to me, ran her fingers through my hair, and pulled my head towards her. We kissed, and she said, "I'm already tired of waiting for you to take the first step." Maybe I'm really slow, but I leaned towards her lips again, and we continued to get to know each other better. After a couple of dates, she invited me to her place. We hugged on the sofa for a long time. It came to mutual caresses and heavy breathing. After about half an hour of such hugs, she pulled away. "I like you, Brendan, but I'm not ready to go any further yet." "Bye," I grinned. She nodded. Suddenly, everything is ahead. True, her "not ready" lasted exactly until the next date. It was already morning when I woke up again. We lay in the spoon position. Sophia pressed her back against me. I grabbed her with one arm and put the other under her head. "Oh, what time is it now?" she muttered, not fully waking up. I raised my head to look at the bedside clock. 20 minutes to 6. She just moaned. I smiled slyly. She slapped my hand. "Don't touch me, everything hurts." "But it would be a cool death," I laughed. She finally turned over to face me. Her hair was disheveled, but she looked amazing. "Good morning," I said. She moaned again and stood up from the bed, pushing me away. "I need to go to the bathroom," she said. I let her go. She walked without hiding her nakedness, swaying her hips. I whispered in admiration, "What an ass." Apparently not so quietly, because she laughed and deliberately shook her hips seductively before closing the door behind her. I ran my hands over my face, stood up, found my boxers, and decided it would be a good idea to make some coffee. When I was already putting the coffee maker on, she came out with a towel on her head and a robe. "Thanks," she said, taking the mug. "Your turn." She pushed me towards the bathroom. "You smell like sex." Like it's something bad. But I still went to the shower. I washed my face, put on my pants, and returned to the kitchen. She had already made the toast and pushed the plate towards me. "Thank you." I ate and drank coffee, thinking about something of my own. "Sophia, perhaps I should have asked this before we—" I waved my hand towards the bedroom. "Did you sleep?" She grinned slyly. "Well, yes," I answered. "But I really want to know, how do you see all this? Are we just having a good time, dating, having sex? Or could this lead to something?" I took her hand. Or are we going to something more serious? Brendan, I don't know what to tell you right now, she paused. I nodded. Yes, I understand. Sorry if I'm going too far. Let's not bother. What are your plans for today? Sophia changed the topic. I'm going to church with my family. We go every Sunday, she answered and smiled. I see, I said. Then it's probably time for me too. She nodded and came over and sat on my lap before I could get up. She sat silently for a minute, as if gathering her thoughts, and then she hugged me around the neck. Do you want to come with me? Her parents, Miguel and Luz, and her brothers, Jaime and Hector, were probably surprised to see me, but were too tactful to show it. Personally, I liked them immediately. It should be noted that when Sophia introduced me, two things happened. First, I heard her mother ask her father in Spanish to invite me to dinner. I was a little distracted, so I didn't react immediately myself. As a result, Sophia's father translated her invitation, and I readily agreed. The second thing that distracted me, I thought I caught Jaime asking Hector again in Spanish, "What about Ray?" until Sophia hissed at him to shut up. At that moment, I decided that I would not tell Sophia yet that I understood Spanish quite well, and I decided that we would have to continue the conversation that we started in the morning. Sophia and I continued to meet. We went on dates, had sex, and on Sundays I went with her to her parents. A few weeks later, I brought up the topic again. Where are we going? We were in bed, and she snuggled up to me with a smile. You make me happy, Brendan. Mutually, I answered and kissed her. We lay there for a while, but I pulled away. Seriously, honey, do I make you happy in the sense of you like spending time and having sex with me, or in the sense of I'm the one and the only? I noticed something cross her face, but she said, Only you, Brendan. I looked at her carefully. Sophia, these are the best words I could hear, but I'm really sorry, I have to ask. This torments me. You may be angry, but I can't help but ask, does Ray know we're together? She sat up on the bed and stared at me. How can you ask such a thing? Please just answer. If we're not exclusive, I want to know about it. Yes, Brendan, she blurted out irritably. I told him after our first time that I am now with you. Okay. I winced at the venom in her voice, but only answered, Okay, thank you. She jumped out of bed and slammed the bathroom door angrily. She stayed cold for a few days after that, but eventually thawed out. A bouquet of flowers helped a lot, and big. About a month later, I cautiously suggested, should we move in together? But she said her parents would be shocked, so I backed down. We still spent Sundays with her family. I really liked all of this. Her parents are great, and her brothers too. In the fall, I decided to take us on a little weekend trip to San Antonio. On Saturday, we walked through Hemisphere Park, then I took her to the top of the Tower of the Americas and got down on one knee. I only had time to say, Sophia, will you come out? When she fell next to me and started babbling, yes, 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 to the applause of passers-by. Later, when we were celebrating the engagement in bed, she suddenly gasped and sat up. Brendan, have you spoken to my father? He'll kill you if not. I believe, I grinned, but I've already discussed everything. He said, if you are ready to tolerate me, then he will not mind. Sophia clapped her hands and jumped on me, and our celebration continued. The wedding was magnificent, but without unnecessary pomp. For Sophia's parents, Miguel and Luz, their only daughter is a big deal. My friend Jason was at the ceremony, and Sophia's brothers were the best men. Her friends were bridesmaids. When I saw my father walking Sophia down the altar, I honestly almost shed a tear. I basically had no one at the wedding except my boss Jeff and his wife Karen and a couple of friends and colleagues. But Sophia had a whole horde of relatives and friends, so the church was filled. At the banquet, we went around the guests, and she translated for me what those who did not know English well were saying. One day, she leaned towards my ear and whispered, Honey, you'll have to learn Spanish if you want to keep up with my relatives. I smiled and said, Maybe, but I like it when you whisper translations in my ear. It sounds so intimate. I only felt the slightest remorse for maintaining the appearance that I did not speak Spanish. She smiled and playfully bit my ear. Is this an ear? Moon. 2 years later, everything was going well. Sophia and I finished the project we worked on together, after which we both had new tasks. I got promoted, and I think Jeff had more and more confidence in my abilities. I missed the time when we spent the whole day together, but in general our life remained the same. Dinners, dances, sometimes concerts, and still Sundays at her parents'. We discussed children. More precisely, I tried to raise this issue a couple of times, but she always brushed it off, saying that she was not ready to sacrifice her career. Once she even got angry with me for asking another question, and I decided that it would be better if she was happy and decided for herself when the time came. Trouble began when Sophia was assigned to a new project in the Bluff Springs area. She began to stay at work in the evenings, first once a week, then twice. When she said that she would also have to go out on Saturdays, I couldn't stand it. Darling, what kind of work is this? Never before have you overworked so much. I know, honey, it's just a very tedious project, a lot of bureaucracy. We're already sorting things out. Everything will be back to normal soon. But nothing returned to normal. Over the years, Mitchell Construction has achieved great success. Jeff decided to throw a big party for all the employees, as well as the partners and companies with whom we collaborated and who contributed to our success. We didn't have a room in our office that could fit everyone, so we rented Katie Elder's bar. Sophia and I talked with colleagues there, danced mostly with each other, sometimes with other people. I danced with Jeff's wife and a few other ladies from the office. Sophia danced with Jeff and other colleagues, always asking my permission, or at least, with her eyes, to clarify if I was okay. At some point, I was talking with our foreman, Ralph Hughes, and suddenly I noticed that Sophia was on the dance floor with Ray. They danced quite closely, and I saw Ray's hand land on her buttock. Sophia did not move her away. I apologized to Ralph and walked closer. I caught Sophia's eye, but she just smiled. She said something to Ray that I didn't hear, and they continued dancing. I stood there, getting more and more excited, until she finally came to me. I see you have become closer, I said in an even voice. Yes, it's Ray, we just danced. Are you jealous? She grinned. It was clear that she had had a drink. Is there a reason? My jaw clenched more and more. Do you always let just Ray grab your ass in public? Oh, fuck you, Brendan. She told me we were just dancing. I froze, amazed. Realizing what she said, she tried to grab my hand. Brendan, I'm sorry. Apparently, I've had too much. Apparently, I muttered, I'll go and get some air. Wait, she shouted, but did not follow me. I moved towards the bar. Jason raised an eyebrow. Only mineral water, bro. I sat down, staring at one point. Suddenly, Jason said, Dude, and nodded towards the stage. I turned around. Sophia and Ray were leaving through the back door behind the stage. What the? I took a step in that direction. Jason tugged at my sleeve and pointed to the door to his office. I nodded and went there. In his office, I turned off the light and opened the door to the corridor. From here, Sophia and Ray could be seen leaning against the walls opposite each other, speaking in Spanish. I was able to make out most of the dialogue. Sophia said, Brendan is very angry. You shouldn't have touched my ass, Ray. Ray grinned. Fuck him. It's my ass, and I'll grab it whenever I want. She pointed her finger at him. No, this is my ass, and I already said, don't do that in public, especially in front of him. What the hell? Should I just wait until you come to me? Sophia, already flirtatiously. Don't I give you everything you need? You just have to be patient. You know we have to be careful. Yeah, but that's what turns me on the most, knowing that he's probably sitting outside right now, dead, thinking you're mad at him. Ray replied with an evil sneer. Come on, baby, I'm so fucking horny right now, he continued. We can do it right here. Just turn around. Sophia looked around the corridor and said, Okay, but just quickly. She turned around and Ray stepped towards her. Just as she started to lift up the hem of her dress, I walked through the door and cleared my throat. Sophia screamed and jumped back, and Ray looked at me angrily. "Hey guys, I lost you at the party." I took a couple of steps towards them. "So what are you hiding here?" A few more steps. Sophia turned pale, but simply said, "Oh, we were talking about the project, you know. It was too noisy there." Wow, what dedicated professionals even working at a party. Impressive. I clapped my hands, slowly and sarcastically. "Brendan, why are you acting like this?" Sophia was clearly nervous. She wasn't sure what exactly I saw. "Oh, I don't know. Maybe." And I switched to Spanish, because my wife was just about to have sex with this piece of shit right here in this hallway. And it is absolutely clear to me that this has been going on for a long time. That's why I behave this way. At first it took them a while to realize that I no longer spoke English. But when they realized, Sophia covered her mouth with her hands and sank to the floor. "Yes, I heard all your sweet conversations. Very informative." Sophia was crying, and I just stared at Ray. "Well, moron, what are you going to do?" That was enough. Ray hit me. I was waiting for him to make the first move, then I could calmly defend myself. Walking through Jason's office a minute earlier, I grabbed a roll of quarters from his coin bag. You know, those heavy Ziploc bags that small businesses use to transport their silver to the bank. So I hit back. Sophia screamed, "You killed him," and threw herself on his lap. "Don't worry about me, Sophia, your husband. I'm fine. It seems you have made your choice." I turned around and walked out the way I came, throwing the roll back where I got it. "Brendan, wait!" she shouted. I simply walked through the office, nodded to Jason, and headed to the car. Sophia ran after me. She muttered that it wasn't what I thought, that nothing happened, that she loved me, and begged me to stop and talk. Finally, I just stopped her. He looked her straight in the eye and asked, "Honey, do you know what a white lie is?" "What? I don't." "A white lie is when I tell you that this dress doesn't make you fat." She stared at me. A white lie is different from a big lie. A big lie is, for example, when I tell you that I don't speak Spanish. Her eyes widened, and I swear I saw her skin turn 3 shades paler, and she staggered. "You son of a bitch," she hissed. "Moi. Oh, sorry, it's French. You cheated on me, I heard you. You were ready to give it to him right there, and am I the son of a bitch?" I shook my head. "No, no, 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 no." She shook her head, pleading with her eyes. "Baby, it's not what you think." I laughed. "Is it true?" "It only happened once." "Nonsense. He means nothing to me," she almost screamed. "Jesus, Sophia, how many more cliches are you going to come out with?" She burst into tears. "Please, Brendan, forgive me. I love you, please." "Clear. Do you love me so much that you were ready to have sex with him at our office party?" She continued to sob. "Okay, Sophia, I don't care. I'm leaving. Today I'll spend the night at the hotel. You have until next weekend to pack your things and move out." "No, no, no, Brendan, my Vida, you can't leave me," she screamed. "Am I your life?" She nodded. "Yes, baby." "You're kidding me. If I am your life, tell me why." I looked closely at her face. "This is your only chance. Convince me why I should forgive you. But if I feel even a drop of lies, I'm leaving." She sobbed. "Can we talk at home?" She wasn't stupid. She wanted time to come up with something I would believe. But I didn't care anymore. "You know what? Okay, let's go. You have time before home to come up with a good story." We drove in deathly silence. When we arrived, Sophia immediately disappeared into the bathroom. She was stalling for time. I heard the water in the shower turn on. Suddenly furious, I went to open the bathroom door. It was locked. I kicked it out. She screamed and turned around. "Oh no, you won't wash this bastard off of you and won't come to me with conversations." Quickly to the kitchen. She flashed her eyes at me. How can you talk to me like that? Are you serious? I threw her a robe, the one made of terry, not silk, and waited. Continuing to glare at me, she put on her robe and went to the kitchen. I sat down opposite her and waited. The word is yours. She continued to look at her hands, which nervously fiddled with the hem of her robe like two small animals. I started to get up. Okay, Sophia, if that's all you can do. No. She abruptly extended her arms towards me, fingers spread wide, pleading, and I sat down again. No, please. Her face was contorted in pain, and she really looked miserable, about the same way I felt. I'm so sorry, Brendan. I just looked at her. You already said it. But while we're on the subject, what exactly are you apologizing for? For treason? Or because you got caught? She looked at me blankly. Doesn't matter. But it's already starting to smell, Sophia, so tell the truth. I never meant to hurt you, baby, I swear. It was just sex. I promise this will never happen again. I just started laughing. A picture appeared in my head of Sophia carefully reading out points from a big, thick book called The Cheater's Guide, and I couldn't stop. Sophia looked at me in confusion. I slowly leaned over, rested my hands on the table, and lowered my head. My shoulders continued to shake, and I was no longer sure whether I was laughing or crying. I felt Sophia gently touch my shoulder. I jerked, and she immediately pulled her hand back. Please don't touch me. I straightened up and rubbed my face with my palms. I'm so sorry, you have to believe me. Just give me a chance, and I know we can get through this, Brendan. I love you, she screamed. I sighed and shook my head. I love you too, and that's why it hurts so much. But I already gave you a chance, Sophia. We gave each other a chance. When we stood in front of your damn family and swore allegiance to each other. She shrank in her chair. I tried to pull myself together. Remember, Sophia, I take you as my faithful life partner. Do you remember saying that? She sniffled and nodded. Fine. I abruptly put my palms on the table, and she twitched again. I stood up and headed to the bedroom, Sophia following me. She tried to grab me when I pulled a bag out of the closet and started stuffing clothes into it. She continued to sob as I threw the razor, toothbrush, and other supplies into my bag. I moved towards the exit. Before opening the door, I turned to her. Until next weekend, Sophia. I bought this house before I met you, so I'm keeping it. Pack your things for the weekend, and find yourself a lawyer. I still don't know if she really lost consciousness or was just putting on an act, but I didn't care anymore. I left her there, lying on the floor. The next day, I threw myself into business. A lawyer, a bank, company finances, and a conversation with my boss. I didn't want to ruin Sophia, but I also didn't intend to pay her alimony if it could be avoided. I asked a lawyer to file for a no-fault divorce. He divided the bank accounts, transferring his half to new ones, and removed her name from all documents and policies. It was one of the hardest days of my life. But the next day was worse. I put on a suit and went to Sophia's parents. In the end, the lawyers settled everything. Sophia asked to meet before signing the papers. I just wanted to move on, so I agreed. She wanted to meet at the house, but I said, not for the world. Meet me at her lawyer's office. She was already there when I arrived. She looked amazing, but she always looked amazing. She smiled timidly, stood up, tried to hug me, but I just walked around the table and sat down opposite. Okay, Sophia, talk. She looked at me, then lowered her eyes. Brendan, I'm so sorry. I love you. You have to believe me. I believe, Sophia. That's why it still hurts so much. Can you explain why? Did you really break up with him? Yes, I swear, Brendan. When you first asked if we were just dating each other, I was already done with him. Okay, so what the hell happened? I don't know. When I was transferred to a new project, we began working with the real estate agency where Ray worked. Stop. Did you think it would be important to tell me you were working with Ray again? You're really not helping yourself right now. Sorry, Brendan, I didn't think it was important. That's it, Sophia. And that's another problem. She looked at me. She really didn't understand why this made me angry. But she continued. I met him long before you, Brendan, and, I don't know, he was easy to talk to. We worked really hard at first, but one day we stayed late. There was something to be discussed, and he suggested dinner together. I thought it wasn't a big problem. I drank a couple of glasses of wine, even more than a couple, and he started massaging my shoulders. I know I should have stopped him, but I was drunk and told myself it was harmless. The next thing I know, it felt so good that I just let it happen. Warm tears rolled down her cheeks. When it was all over, I realized what I had done. I felt so disgusted, I screamed at him and ran out of the apartment. The next day, I couldn't look you in the eyes. I was sure that you would look at me and immediately understand. Why should I, Sophia? I trusted you. I sighed. And you know, if you had told everything at that moment, if you had explained what happened, maybe we could have survived it. I couldn't. I was so ashamed, I couldn't tell you. I simply nodded. But even after that, you didn't stop, huh? Fresh tears rolled down her face. Sophia continued to sob, but nodded. I know it sounds stupid when I say it out loud, but I never meant to hurt you. This only happened a few times. Please, Brendan, give me another chance. I'll do anything. I looked at her, and my heart shattered into pieces again. Sophia, I love you, but I just don't think I can ever trust you again. Every time you stay late at work, I will think, are you really at work? Every time you don't pick up the phone, I'll wonder who you're with. I shook my head. And that's not how relationships work. You'll start getting angry at me for this, and then what? Where will we end up? She shook her head furiously. No, 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 we can get through this, please. I'm sorry, Sophia. Just sign the papers. I stood up and left the office, leaving her sobbing at the table. As much as I wanted to get even with Ray one more time for what he did to us, it turned out that I didn't have to. I heard from James that Ray was hospitalized with multiple bruises, a broken arm, a broken nose, and a concussion. According to rumors, he fell down the stairs. I invited James and Hector to drink at my expense. We toasted Ray's accident, and I chose not to notice the fresh abrasions on their knuckles. Sophia tried to call me several times, but I finally blocked her number. A couple of months later, I heard that she moved in with Ray, and this finally closed the topic for me. And then Hector told me that Sophia caught Ray cheating with her own cousin. This simply cannot be made up. I laughed and called the guys over for a drink again. Sometime soon after this, she moved somewhere. I've never been much of a drinker and never wanted to lose myself in a bottle. Well, except for the day I saw her for the last time. Instead, I threw myself into work. Eventually, Jeff noticed and forced me to take 2 weeks off. Brendan, you're going to burn out. Go have a beer, go fishing, and find yourself a woman. Just stop obsessing over it, son, okay? The last point didn't interest me at all, so no women. But I went to Lake Travis, fished, and enjoyed the silence. Back to work after 2 weeks with a tan and a hint of new life. Jason, my friend and bar owner, said, "You're better off without that crazy bitch, dude." I continued to work part-time at his bar on weekends, but I wasn't ready for a new relationship yet, although I have several possibilities. I tried to be honest, and most women understood this. Some even said that if I changed my mind, let me call. Which, I must admit, raised my self-esteem a little. Somehow Jason set up karaoke, and Thursdays became official karaoke nights. Surprisingly, it quickly became popular. I started popping in to watch the performances. 6 months later, one Thursday, I was sitting at the bar when I heard a sharp squeal of the microphone. I winced along with half the visitors. And then, from the depths of my memory, sounded voice. Sorry about that. Hello, everyone. I would just like to sing a song about how difficult it is to decide where to go next. I recently had to make that choice. I hope you like it. Sounded first chords. And then this voice started singing Heads Carolina, Tails California by Joe D. Messina. I was afraid to turn around. Instead, I looked at the reflection in the mirror behind the bar. I recognized this voice immediately. And now, looking at her, I saw the same girl I knew in school with wavy brown hair. But now she got rid of acne and lost 15 kilograms. She looked amazing. And then it dawned on me. I rushed to his car, pulled out a case with a guitar, and went back to the bar. I quickly called Jason over. "Jason," I whispered. He came up. "What, Brendan? Why do you need a guitar?" No time to explain. "Can I use your office?" "Yeah, but what the—" "Not now." I lightning rushed into the office, ran through the service door, checked the guitar's tuning fine. I looked out onto the stage. She stood with her back to me. I quietly walked onto the stage and sat on a chair behind her. I motioned to Jason to turn down the volume, and then started playing. A singer shuddered when the phonogram began to fade and my guitar replaced it. She started to turn around. I lowered his head and made a hand sign, "Continue." She slightly frowned out of surprise, but didn't stop. From time to time, I looked back at myself. But she brought the song to the end and received stormy applause. Then she finally turned around to me, hands on hips, with a half smile. I got up and raised his head. "Hi, Carrie," I said. Her eyes widened. Lips formed into an astonished "oh." She covered her mouth with her hands for a second and then rushed to me and hugged me. Hall applauded. Someone even whistled. "Another one?" I winked. She didn't want to let me go, but nodded. "Remember this one?" I started playing "I Wasn't Expecting That" by Jamie Lawson. She laughed and again started singing, this time looking straight at me. When the song was over, I hugged her again and then raised her hand in the air. Hall burst into applause. She smiled at me and slightly curtsied in a playful manner. I led her to an empty table, which Jason thoughtfully left for us. Her friends came up to us. She introduced us to each other. My girlfriend asked if she was okay. Carrie nodded. "Do you want us to stay?" asked one of them. "No, I think I can figure out how to get home," Carrie said, looking straight at me. I nodded and told them I would take care of her. One of them grinned and said that she had no doubt about it. When she returned to the table, she actually looked at me and seemed to realize that she now had to raise her head to meet my gaze. "Oh my God, Bren, when did you get so tall?" Her eyes ran over my body. And so big. I just grinned. "I worked at a construction site and started eating normally. But look at yourself. You look absolutely stunning, Carrie." She blushed. "Thank you. In general, I have a similar story. I started working out and stopped eating burgers and fries. I see you finally got a haircut." I chuckled. "Yeah, no more mop on your head." I ran my hand through my hair, a little embarrassed. Carrie smiled. "I liked your mop." She pouted, and I chuckled again. We were silent for a few seconds until I asked, "It's not that I'm indescribably happy to see you, but why are you here?" "Don't get me wrong, I'm glad you're here. You can't even imagine how much." I added, grinning. "Sorry, too fast, too harsh?" "No, it's okay," she said, lowering her eyes. "Honesty, right? The best policy," I answered sincerely. "Okay, well, damn, I still can't believe I'm sitting here talking to you. Okay, sorry why I'm here." She took a deep breath. "I think it was towards the end of freshman year when we started growing apart, and you said you couldn't come home for the summer." I realized that sadness had appeared in my gaze, and she hastened to continue. "I don't blame you, Bren, honestly. I understand how it was for you, I promise. Just. Then, in that moment, I was sad." I nodded. "Me too, Carrie." In general, then I began to pay more attention to myself. "It didn't matter to you, remember? You thought I was beautiful from the very beginning." She said this quietly, almost with surprise. I remember, I smiled, and I still think so. She blushed again. "So, I started losing weight, my face cleared up, and suddenly there were guys who became interested in me. In my second year, they started asking me out on dates. At first I was angry. Like, where were you all before? "I understand perfectly, honey." She looked at me, smiling because of my affectionate manner. "Yes, I think you really understand." So, I started dating, At first little by little, then more and more often. You could say I was a little carried away by the guys. She hastily added, but I didn't sleep around, I just went on dates a lot. But to be honest, I quickly got bored with it. I graduated from Geneseo University with a degree in communications and got a job at Rock. Wow, how cool. I admired it. Yes, in fact, it was so, she smiled. I got a job as a producer's assistant. I worked there for about 2 years, and then they hired a new program director. She lowered her eyes. We found a common language. I winced slightly, hoping she wouldn't notice. What's his name? A strange expression appeared on Carrie's face, a slight smile flashed across her face, and then disappeared. Barry. I stared at her and then began to chuckle quietly. Carrie giggled too, and I couldn't help, but perhaps from the joy of seeing her again, from all the emotions I laughed out loud. Carrie and Barry, oh God. Shut up, she said, still laughing. It's not that funny. My giggles gradually died down, and I wiped the tears from my eyes. Okay, probably not. Sorry. We both sat back in our chairs. So, where's Barry? I asked, but my chuckle quickly disappeared when I saw the expression on her face. Still in Rochester. We dated for a little over a year, then got engaged. And then I found out what a scoundrel he was. Wait a minute, I said. I turned around in my seat, waved my hand at Jason, showed 2 fingers, and pointed at the table. He nodded. Sorry, but for this conversation we need a drink. A minute later, Jason walked up to the table with 2 glasses of whiskey. Whistlepig Rye. Vermont whiskey might seem strange in a Texas bar, but Jason kept it just for me. A small piece of homeland. Thank you, Jason. Meet my friend Carrie from home. Carrie, this scoundrel is my friend Jason. He is the owner of this establishment. Jason ignored me. Nice to meet you, he said to Carrie, and she smiled at him. He then gave me the middle finger and walked back to the bar. Carrie took a small sip and gasped. Wow, this is definitely an acquired taste, Bren. I smiled and took a sip. I missed this, you know. Bren, you're the only one who called me that. She lowered her gaze, a slight smile playing on her lips. Then she took another sip and continued. In general, 6 months before the wedding, he once forgot his phone at home. Classic case, right? I looked at it, and this idiot didn't even bother to delete the messages. With 2 of my girlfriends. She shook her head and took another sip. I waved to Jason. He came up, silently put the bottle on the table, and left. When I exposed him, he hit me. I growled. Son of a bastard. I think I'll get to Rochester in 2 days, and when I get there, I'll beat that bastard up. I had already started to get up from the table. She grabbed my hand. Bren, stop it. You're not going to Rochester. Why not? Nobody dares to lay a hand on you. I'll teach him good manners. She giggled, and I raised an eyebrow. I've already done it. I raised my other eyebrow. Yes, she said proudly. I hit him and continued until the neighbor heard the noise and pulled me away. I stared at her. Come on, Carrie. She laughed again, but then became serious. After that, I just didn't feel like I could stay in Rochester. I was angry at my friends and didn't know who, if anyone, I could trust anymore. And then Barry hit me in the back at work. The management said that if I quit on my own, I would receive a recommendation. If not, I'll just be fired. I think I could fight, but I had already decided to leave, so there was no point. She finished her whiskey, and I poured her some more. I think I have a new fan of this drink. She nodded in gratitude, twirled the glass in her hand, and finally said, The only person besides Mom and maybe Josh, who I trust, is you, Bren. I know I have no right to expect anything, but I thought, well, since I was leaving, why not go somewhere where I have at least one friend? Does this mean you live here now? She nodded. I felt a stupid smile spread across my face. This is the best news I've had in a very long time, Carrie. Very long. Her cheeks were a little pink, but maybe it was because of the whiskey. Thank you for offering to beat him up. I know you would. I waved my hand, dismissing her words. How long have you been here? About 4 months. I got a job in Kazan and found an apartment. All the time I told myself that first I need to get on my feet and then find you. But to be honest, I think I was just nervous. I almost got married, but what if you found someone too? I was scared, Bren. 8 years have passed. I cleared my throat. Probably everything happens for a reason. If you had come 6 months ago, I would have been married. Her eyes widened, and I reached out to take her hand in mine. It's over, I promise. It's completely over. Burnt to the ground. Wow, looks like there's a whole story here. I nodded and told her everything that happened with Sophia. When I finished, she simply said, God, what a selfish bitch. Exactly. We were silent for a while. You know, looking back, I'm not sure I ever really loved her. At least not the way I love you. Do you still love me? She asked quietly. Carrie, do you remember what I said before I got on that bus? You said you love me forever, she whispered, and that I always will. And I squeezed her hand. Sophia. My name is Sophia Pena. Sophia Pena Barnes, that's exactly what it says on my wedding certificate. I still have it. I'm divorced, but I never gave up his last name. This is the only thing left of him. I lost the most wonderful person in my life because I was a fool. It's been 5 years, 3 months, and 14 days since I last saw him. I regret that I didn't try harder to get him back, but after I betrayed him, after I left him, I don't think he could ever forgive me. I cheated on him. And when Brendan left, I couldn't stand myself anymore and I left. I didn't fight for the divorce and he soon found a new woman. It hurt me, but I couldn't hate her. She made my Brendan happy. He continued to keep in touch with my parents and they still considered him their son. It was from my mother that I learned about his new wife and a few years later about the birth of their child. I was honest with my parents, telling them why we got divorced. Mom and Dad were disappointed in me. It took them a while to forgive me. I hope someday Brendan can too. But after what I did, how I did it, I'm scared. When I visit my parents, I ask how he is. I think I do it unobtrusively, just out of politeness, but I'm sure they know that I still love him. My father was the one who convinced me to see a specialist who could help me understand why I acted the way I did. And having understood this, I would be able to cope with the feeling of guilt. I started drinking too much, and my dad said that if I didn't take control of myself, one day I would just die. I promised him that I would try. At first I was upset, but then I found someone I felt comfortable with, and she helped me a lot. But there is still a long way to go. And then Dad got sick. I started coming home more often, making the 90-minute commute from Waco. Yes, I escaped my life in Austin, but not too far. This is brave of me. Yes. I told myself that I was returning for the sake of my dad and mom, but that wasn't the whole truth. To be honest, I came back because I was scared. My dad has been my support since childhood, and I was afraid of losing him. Mom has always been strong. She held me in her arms while I cried and told me that Dad, even when he was no longer around, would always look out for me and my brothers. One evening, when Dad was already asleep, Mom said, Mija, I know that you still love him. Of course, I burst into tears. Oh, Mom, if you only knew how much. And I'm so sorry for what I did to him. And with you, Brendan loves you and Dad. And we love him. He will always be like a son to us. His Carrie was a beautiful soul, and little Lark was a true treasure. She's calling me abuela, you know. This is Brendan's idea, not mine. She stroked my hand. So, dwarf, what's your plan? Plan, Sophia, I'm your mother. I know that you still love him and want him back. I'm asking how you plan to do this. I don't know, Mom. I think I hurt him too much. So you need to show him that you will never hurt him again. How? My voice trembled. Slowly, dwarf. Don't worry. I'll help you. Brendan. It flashed on the screen, Lus Pena. Hello, Mom. How can I help you? I said, smiling, answering the call. Hello, Brendan. I almost dropped my phone. Even 5 years later, I instantly recognized that voice. Brendan. Yes, sorry. Hello, Sophia. Sorry to bother you, but Mom asked me to call you. Why? What's happened? What do you need? I immediately regretted my harshness. Very quiet. Dad's sick, Brendan. He was too proud to let you see him in this state, but now it's almost over, and he would like to see you. Will you come? Oh God, of course. Just tell me where. He's at home with us. He has been receiving hospice care for the past few days. My heart sank. Hospice. I'll come as soon as possible. I told Lark we were going to visit Abuela, and she joyfully exclaimed, Yay! I buckled her into her car seat and headed towards the house. When we entered, Hector and Jane were sitting in the kitchen. I approached them and we hugged. I'm really sorry, guys. I wish I had known sooner. They simply nodded. Hector said, You know, Dad, he hated looking weak in front of anyone, even his family. And you're still our brother, you know. I nodded and hugged them both again. Lark, baby, will you stay here a little with Jane and Hector? She happily ran towards them, and James immediately picked her up in his arms, and I headed to Miguel's room. I knocked and slowly opened the door. 3 pairs of eyes looked at me. Miguel tried to sit up in bed a little, and Luz just smiled warmly at me. She sat next to him, holding hands with him. And the third person. I haven't seen her for almost 5 years. Her hair was shorter than before, and she looked thinner, but still just as beautiful. My ex-wife. Sophia sat in a chair by the bed, her eyes meeting mine, filling with tears. She stood up, took a step towards me, and stopped. My heart sank. After all, her father lay dying. I just extended my hands, and she threw herself into my arms, clinging to me and sobbing loudly. I just held her. SHHH, I'm here. I'm holding you. Carefully stroked her hair. Eventually, her sobs subsided. With one last sob, she lifted her head from my chest and looked at me. I ruined your shirt, she tried to smile. Don't worry, I smiled, letting her go. She returned to her seat, and I turned to the man in the bed and the woman next to him, to the people who have been my parents since my mother died so many years ago. I walked over and hugged Luz. She returned the hug with a strength that surprised me considering her age. She stroked my cheek and said, Talk to him, mijo. She took Sophia's hand and they left the room. I sat down next to him. How are you, Miguel? Oh, not bad. I think I'll go fishing tomorrow. I laughed and he grinned, but then started coughing. I handed him a glass from the bedside table and he took a sip. Thank you, mijo. He looked at me intently, and I really mean it. You were like a son to us, even after my daughter lost her fucking head. And Lark is the granddaughter we dreamed of. Thank you for allowing us to be a part of her life. Certainly, you and Luz will always be her abuelos. He coughed again. Listen, Brendan, I'm dying, so you have to listen to me. I tried to object, but he waved me off. Listen, he repeated. This is my last wish. He squeezed my hand and said, Please let me say this to the end. Don't interrupt, okay? I nodded. He collected his thoughts, then spoke. Brendan, Luz and I were furious and horrified by what Sophia did to you. I was furious because I didn't understand how the daughter I raised could do this. I failed her, and I failed you. And for this, I apologize. I tried to object again. I didn't even know, but he raised his hand to stop me. Without interruption. Sorry. He looked at me searchingly. I know she broke your heart, but I know my daughter. Even when she acted like a petulant girl, I could see that she was breaking her own heart too. He looked into my eyes intently, and even despite the illness that was eating away at his body, I felt the strength of his will. I know she still loves you, and I've been watching her for the last 5 years. She is no longer the stupid girl she used to be. I ask you, please, as her father, talk to her. Even if there is nothing left between you, please take care of her. She'll need you when I'm gone. I could no longer hold back my tears. But what could I say? I leaned over and hugged the man I considered my father. I promise, Dad. Tears also shone in his eyes. Thank you, mijo. Now call my daughter. Miguel held out for 2 more days. When Sophia called me, she was hysterical. I went after her, just to get her out of the house a little. and he took Lark with him. It wasn't fair, but it worked. My daughter was by nature a sunny child, and a 3-year-old child is always a distraction. We went to the park and watched Lark play. We hardly spoke. We were just chatting about her work in Waco, about my life. While in between, we admired everything Lark did, or what she brought to show us. When Lark started nodding off, I told Sophia that it was probably time to take her home. She lowered her eyes, her hands nervously fiddling with the fabric on her knees. I smiled, remembering her old habit. I knew she was trying to work up the courage to ask something, so I just waited. Finally, she looked up, and despite the pain in her eyes, she only said, "Okay, Brendan, thanks for spending this day with me." I looked at her in bewilderment. I was sure that wasn't what she originally wanted to say, but I simply nodded, picked up my sleepy baby, and took her home. The funeral took place 2 days later. I stood there holding Lark in one arm. Sophia grabbed the other, but her eyes remained dry. I cried. After the ceremony, we all returned to the house. I hardly spoke to Sophia. Everyone was busy communicating with friends and relatives who came to express condolences. It was a long, hard day. Sophia found me as I was putting Lark to bed for his nap. She had her own room in this big house. "Brendan, could you give me a moment before you go? I'm sorry that Ni, you have nothing to apologize for. You need to be with your family. Honestly, it's okay. Go ahead, I'll talk to you later. I'll just sit here with Lark." This funeral stirred things up again. I couldn't finish. Sophia covered her mouth with her hand. "Oh, Brendan, I'm sorry. I was so focused on myself, I didn't even think." Her voice trembled. "Sophia, please. Your father just died. You have every right to focus on this. Everything is fine, really. I think about him too." She nodded. "You are sure? I can sit with you." "Thank you. Everything is fine. I'll find you later." "Fine." She hesitated, then quickly hugged me and left. I sat in the dark and looked at my sleeping daughter. I had a lot to think about. When Lark woke up, she was unusually cranky. As I said, she was usually a cheerful child. I asked if she wanted to go home, and she nodded. I walked up to Luz and kissed her on the cheek, and so did Lark. I said, "We'll talk soon." I saw Sophia at the other end of the room and nodded towards the kitchen. She was talking to a man, a little older than us, but she quickly said something to him and immediately came over. "Who was it?" I immediately regretted my words. Sorry, that was rude of me. She looked at me strangely. "Brendan, you can always ask me anything. This is our cousin Gabriel, mother's sister's son. My guapo, no," she teased. I turned away, angry with myself. But at the same time, her words touched me with something. I just wanted to say that I'm leaving. This little one called me tired. Lark, buried in me, sucked her thumb again. She had almost unlearned this habit. "I'm not a monkey," she muttered. At 3 years old, she spoke Spanish as well as English. I was sure it was Luz's doing. I chuckled and kissed the top of Lark's head, then turned to Sophia. "Sorry, I know you wanted to talk, but can we do it tomorrow?" "Certainly. Should I call you, or should you do it yourself?" "I'll call." "Fine. And Brendan, thank you." I simply nodded, and Sophia added, "Bye, Angel." Lark looked at her shyly. The finger was back in her mouth. I actually called as promised, but Sophia said she was still busy with her family. Her mother was exhausted, and she and her brothers were figuring out everything that needed to be done. I said I understood and asked if there was anything I could do to help. She replied that not yet, then hesitated. "Brendan, this isn't what I wanted to talk about, but I wanted you to know. I'm seriously thinking about moving back to Austin to be with my mom." "Okay, sounds logical, but you don't need my permission." "I know, but I seem to have developed an obsessive need to be completely honest with you. I don't want this to come as a surprise to you. I know that you are close to your mother, and she often looks after your daughter. So I wanted to say that if my presence creates problems, I will try to come up with something." "Sophia, I'm sorry. Of course, if you want to be close to your mom, you have to do it. Thank you for considering my feelings. There won't be any problems. Luz needs you. Thank you, Brendan. I'll call you when things calm down a little. And she hung up. She called, but only to say that she had talked to Luz and they had agreed, so she was heading back to Waco to get ready. There was concern in her voice. Sorry, Brendan. I know I said I wanted to talk. I just don't want you to think I'm ignoring you. Is this part of your new honesty? Now she sounded sad. This is not just a whim. I'm really trying to get better. For some reason, this made me angry. Why did I always feel like I had to apologize to her? She was the one who cheated on me, and now I felt like a creep. It's okay, Sophia. Like you said, this is your conversation, so just let me know when it's convenient for you. And I hung up. Sophia. I just stared at the phone. Mom looked at me. Well, Mija. He hung up, Mom. I'm trying to be honest, and just when I think I see him as the old Brendan, he starts getting angry again, and I don't understand why. Mom looked at me for a few seconds. Mija, are you still the same as when you were married to him? Well, no. He's also not the same person. He survived what happened between you, then he got married and had a child, and then his wife died. He is no longer the man you married. Mom took my hands. You need to be patient. Remember, he hasn't seen you for a long time. And now you're back, and he most likely has too many emotions that he's trying to process. Trust me, Mija. I told you I would help, so listen to me. You must be strong now. You must endure whatever he throws at you. Can you do it? I nodded. Thank you, Mom. How did you become so wise? She simply smiled. Give him some space, Sophia. Go back to Waco. I'll ask Hector and Jane to come with the truck tomorrow. Okay, Mom. It turned out that I had almost nothing to collect, and soon I moved my life back to the old house. Hector and Jane lived in the city, in a rented apartment, so now it was just me and my mother in the house. I haven't looked for a job yet. I wanted to be with my mother, and we had the opportunity to regain our former closeness. Judging by Brendan's reaction the last time, I decided to hold off on calling him first. But circumstances intervened. Apparently, Brendan called his mom and asked her to look after Lark on Saturday. He had a meeting with a client, and due to his busy schedule, it had to be rescheduled for the weekend. I was sitting at the kitchen table in my robe, eating breakfast, when I heard a knock on the door, and then it opened and he walked in. I froze, looking at him. He also stared at me, and then he grinned. Sorry, I'm used to just walking in. Now I'll knock. I noticed how he was looking at me, and something warmed inside me that I hadn't felt for a very long time. I looked down, hiding my blush, and said, Everything is fine. Just unexpected. Mom didn't say you were coming, so she'll be sitting with Lark today. Yes, I asked Luz. It was not difficult for her. Damn client didn't find time on weekdays. Dad, bad word, Lark said reproachfully. Sorry, honey. I laughed. I'm sure Mom is happy to be with her. But Brendan, I suddenly felt very insecure. Can I help my mom? He looked at me strangely. I hastened to fill the silence. I'll be honest. I want to help Mom, but more than that. I want to get to know Lark. She is part of you, which means she is important to me. I couldn't look at him, afraid to hear a refusal. He looked at me for a long time, then looked at Lark on his lap. Baby, meet one aunt. Lark looked at me shyly as Brendan continued. She's the sister of your Tio James and Tio Hector, so I guess she's your Tia Sophia. I couldn't help myself. I started crying. Lark got off Brendan's lap and walked over to me. She raised her arms, asking him to take her in his arms. I sat her down and she hugged me. Don't cry, Tia, she said, and I cried even harder. Don't worry, Lark. These are happy tears. Brendan smiled too, and his eyes sparkled suspiciously. Thank you, he said. I'll be back in a couple of hours. Then he leaned towards Lark. Be good for Abula and Tia Sophia, okay? Okay, Dad. We had a great time, and I decided something for myself. When Brendan returned from the meeting, I asked him to stay for lunch. He was about to refuse, but Lark intervened. But Dad, Abulia promised to make empanadas. 3 types. Brendan squatted down. Oh, well, in that case. Hooray! Lark clapped her hands. Later, when it was time for her nap, Brendan got ready again. Well, it's time for me to pick her up. Brendan, if you have no other plans, maybe we can finally talk. You can lay her down here, and then... I stopped. He looked at me, then nodded. Okay, Sophia, I have nothing else to do. He fussed with Lark for a long time, but with a full tummy after her mother's empanadas, she quickly fell asleep. We settled into our chairs, and he looked at me expectantly. Brendan, first of all, I wanted to say that I am so sorry about Carrie. I never met her, but Mom and Dad loved her. She made you happy, she gave you Lark, so I know I would have loved her too. I hope that one day you will tell me about her. Thank you, was all he said. I took a deep breath. Remember when you asked about Gabriel, and I said you could always ask me anything? He nodded. I just wanted to remind you, in general, I took a deep breath again. It will be difficult, but I need to say this, both for myself and for you. First of all, I am no longer the same person I was before. I started seeing a therapist, and she helped me a lot. Helped me understand who I was and why I did what I did. I'm so ashamed of that, Sophia. For the one you saw in that corridor, so embarrassing. I'm sorry, I promised myself that I wouldn't cry. Brendan didn't say anything. I just listened. And then, in the parking lot and in the house, that conversation was forever imprinted in my head. Looking back now, I realize I probably sounded like an idiot. Everything I said was just nonsense. I didn't give you a single normal reason. Only excuses. Even later, when we met for the last time, I tried to explain, but it was still nonsense. Then it seemed to me that I was telling the truth, but now, as if it was someone else saying this nonsense. I'm so sorry, Brendan. I didn't cry, but tears flowed down my cheeks. I'm sorry. I took a deep breath and continued. I think I can really explain now, if you want to hear. And since I'm trying to be as honest as possible with you, I'd really like to try. I need this too. Sorry if this is selfish. Brendan looked at me for a long time. I saw the struggle in his eyes. Finally, he said, everything is already in the past. But if it helps you, I'm willing to listen. Thank you. I sniffled and pulled myself together. To be honest, the Sophia you married was a spoiled princess, without any exaggeration. I always got everything I wanted. I'm used to the fact that everything is in my hands, that I control everything. And then you showed up. With you, I no longer felt like I was in charge. You saw right through me, into me, like no one has ever seen before. When we made love, it was like nothing I had ever felt, I think. No, I know that you're the only person I'm with for real love. I looked up at him, but he didn't say a word. I just listened. At first it was incredible new, and I fell in love with you. This should be wonderful. But for some reason I started to feel afraid. I understand that this doesn't make sense. But you were right that night. I panicked. I guess I would be caught so that there would be a reason to escape. Because that's exactly what I did. A little scared girl who couldn't cope with her real feelings and ran away. With Ray, everything was simple. I was with him. I never loved him, but he was safe. No, not even that. He was faceless, ordinary, so I never had to experience those feelings that were with you. And with you, I felt like I was spinning in a whirlwind. I felt like I was losing myself, like I was being swept away in a hurricane. If you think about it now, it was incredible, but then I was too petty, selfish, and cowardly to understand it. I sat back in my chair, feeling completely empty. But I'm not finished yet. Now, please, I said quietly, ask me anything you want. Brendan was silent for a long time, for a very long time. Finally, he said, I need to think about what you said. If you had explained it like that then, maybe we could have fixed something. But I think now I can believe that who you were then would really do it. He paused and added, but even after we broke up, how could you come back to him? This killed the last hopes that at least something could remain between us. I stared at him in shock. Who told you that I lived with him? I covered my mouth with my hand, shocked. Oh God, yes, I came to him, but not in order to return it. He kept calling me, so I went to tell him to his face that left me alone. I snorted, remembering. Do you know what happened? I started laughing. Brendan frowned. What? I pounded at his door with all my might. He didn't open it right away, and when I opened it, he was in the same pants and looked like he had just. Well, you get the idea. Brendan pursed his lips. In general, I started telling him everything about why I came, and then I heard a voice from another room. I rolled my eyes. To me, it was necessary to see. I don't know why, but it's necessary. And you know whom did I see there? Whom? Damn cousin, Inez. Brendan stared at me. Seriously. I nodded, still laughing. He shook his head, then froze. Crap. He suddenly looked like he was lit up. Sophia, for me to apologize to you, I remember now. Who told me this? I froze. It was on one of his company's projects. I accidentally overheard a conversation between two guys. I bet Ray himself spread a rumor to spite us. I felt anger boiling inside me. This. Jerk. Brendan nodded. Sorry. I believed this shit, and it made me even angrier at you. We then already broke up, but to me, it was important to know it wasn't true. I took a deep breath. Thank you for telling me. I'm sorry that his lies took from us even the slightest chance. Sophia, I'm not filming. It's your fault. You asked then for what you have to apologize, and you didn't have an answer. And now there is. I looked straight into his eyes. Yes, now there is. I spoke slowly and clearly so that I definitely heard. I apologize for the fact that I cheated you and caused you pain. I apologize for the fact that destroyed us. I was scared, selfish, and immature, and I got over it in the worst possible way. I would give everything to bring us back, but if I came back to that one, I would have found it anyway in some way to ruin everything. Brendan was silent for a long time, and then he asked the same thing. What has changed now? He bowed his head, studying me carefully. If we, and this is only hypothetical, if only we started dating again, you again, would you be scared? I took a deep breath. Here it is. I looked straight into his eyes. All I can say, and I pray that I have a chance to prove. I swallowed. I'm not the same anymore. I said that I was going to a therapist. She helped me a lot. If you want, you can talk to her. I'll give her permission to tell you anything. She's honest. And then you'll find out that I'm not trying to manipulate you. I never won't do it, Brendan. Never. I sighed again. I know I destroyed us. And I know that I will carry this pain and regret until the end of my life. I will never do anything that would deliberately jeopardize even the slim possibility that we can rebuild. I can't promise that I'll never do anything to make you angry. No one can make that promise. I just want to try to see if we can be friends. Only this. I wiped my tears. Sorry, I'm bad at not crying. I just miss my friend. Please just think about it. I kissed him on the cheek and left the room. I went to look for my mother and we talked. I told her that I wanted to give Brendan time to think about everything I said, so I would give him space. What I realized is that now I need to let him control what happens between us. She smiled. You're learning, honey. Brendan. I didn't see Luz or Sophia when I picked up Lark and went home. Honestly, I was grateful for this. On the way, I thought about everything that Sophia had told me. She really gave me something to think about. It was obvious that she had matured since our divorce. The question was, could I love this new Sophia? She said she still loved me, and God help me, I believed her. But then I realized that it was never about love. It was a matter of trust. Will I be able to trust her again? She impressed me, and she said that she misses her friend. I wasn't a complete idiot, and I knew she was hoping for more. The question was, am I ready to give her what she wants? And that's when I realized that I just needed to see her again. The next day I called her. He apologized for leaving without saying goodbye to her and Luz. He asked me to give this to her mother. Sophia said that everything was fine and that she would tell him. I thanked her for everything she had told me and said that I had a lot to think about, but would contact her again. She calmly accepted this, simply said that I was always welcome, and thanked me for listening to her. Sophia, as I promised my mom, I gave Brendan his space. I was looking for a job. I asked him which companies he thought had a good reputation. He sent me a list, and one of them invited me for an interview. I got the job and sent him a message thanking him. He briefly congratulated me and added a thumbs-up emoji. I spent a lot of time with my mother, just talking, and, surprisingly, cooking. I had never been interested in this before in my princess phase, as I now called that period of my life. In Waco, I mostly ate takeout or microwaved processed foods. I spent most of my free time in the gym or taking courses that seemed interesting to me. I sometimes went out with work friends, but I didn't go on dates. I just had no interest in men, not after what I did. Yes, they tried to hit me up, but I compared them all to Brendan, and no one even came close. So I cooked with my mom. She was an excellent cook, and suddenly I wanted to learn. We spent a lot of time in the kitchen, which was good for my brothers. They now lived in the city, but often came to visit. I was grateful for the opportunity to rebuild our relationship. The three of us, my brothers and I, sometimes went to a bar called Katie Elder's Brendan's favorite bar. The first time I asked Jason, the owner and bartender and Brendan's best friend, to talk to me in his office. He looked at me for a few seconds and then agreed. First, I apologized for hurting his friend, for the way I behaved. She said I wasn't the same anymore, that I talked to Brendan and apologized to him, and that we were trying to be friends. I added that if he didn't want me to come here, I would leave, but I wanted to clear the air about his friendship with Brendan. After all, he was the best man at our wedding. Jason just looked at me and said, "If everything is okay for Brendan, then it's okay for me too." Look up the word in the dictionary, laconic, and there will be a photo of him. I didn't understand how he survived in the bar. I asked if Brendan was still playing here, and Jason said no, not after Carrie died. I don't know why, but this made me very sad. I thanked him and quickly left before he saw me crying. Brendan. A few weeks later, I called Sophia again. I had another meeting on Saturday with the same guy as last time. Damn guy, I muttered, and the phone said, "Bad word, Dad." I laughed. I asked if she and Luz could look after Lark in the morning. Sophia almost suffocated on the phone when I added, "And after that, maybe you and I can spend the day together, if Mom doesn't mind." I heard her trying to pull herself together. "I would like to. I'll ask her and let you know." When I left Lark with them, Sophia made coffee. I took a sip and smiled. "Mama Luz, you always had the best coffee." Luz looked slyly at Sophia, who was smiling shyly. "It's you." She nodded. "No big deal, it's just coffee." But still, I shook my head. "As good as Mom's." We arrived at the park and sat in silence for a while. "One day you asked if I would tell you about Carrie," I finally said. "I want to do it now, if you don't mind." Sophia nodded. "Yes, I would like to hear." We sat down on the blanket and I started talking. I told her everything, about how I met Carrie, about our youth, about how we reunited, how she helped me cope, how we got married and gave birth to Lark, and about how she died. Sophia listened, hugging me. When I finished, we were just silent. "Brendan," she whispered, turning to me. I turned around too. We bumped heads. She laughed. "Oh, fool." She rubbed her forehead, and I leaned over and kissed the spot. She froze. I smiled. "It's all gone," she said quietly. "Everything is fine." And she squeezed my hand. Sophia. Time passed faster than we expected, and by the time we returned home, it was already late. Lark and Brendan ended up staying for dinner. Abuela is preparing Kai. Kai. How is it, Abuela? Chilaquiles, my silo. Yes, this, and tres leches, Lark announced proudly. "Oh, well, in that case," Brendan drawled. "Hooray, Sophia." I never rushed things. But after our long conversations, I noticed a change in Brendan. He became more open. When he finally asked if I would like to have dinner with him, I said that I would really like to. And then she ran into her mother's arms and cried. With excitement, butterflies fluttered in my stomach, and it seemed to me that I was about to fly away. I changed my outfit 6 times. Mom just shook her head. Mija, this is Brendan. Don't worry. I know, Mom, but I'm so nervous. She stroked my cheek. Everything will be fine. And so it was, even better than just good. When he arrived, he had a small bouquet of flowers, and my eyes lit up. He grinned as he handed them to his mom and kissed her on the cheek. I put my hands on my hips and pretended to snort angrily. They both laughed, and I couldn't help but join them. So simple, my nerves disappeared. He knew I would be worried and found a way to calm the situation without me even realizing it. There was more depth to him than I remembered. Well, Casanova, let's go. I also kissed my mother, and we left. While we were driving, I asked, "Where is Lark?" Oh, I felt like I was taking too much advantage of Luz's kindness, so I asked one of the neighboring girls to babysit her. She's a good girl, and she'll probably need the money. Lark likes her. Oh, okay. Where are you taking me? I thought about an Italian restaurant. Oh, that's exactly what I want. He took me to a small establishment that I had never been to. The food was excellent, and we shared a bottle of Chianti. We talked, he made me laugh, and it was so easy to be with him. After dinner, we took a walk along the river. We held hands and just enjoyed each other's company. Is it funny when you feel so good with someone that words become unnecessary? That's exactly how it was. He drove me home and kissed me on the cheek. It seemed to me that I just floated inside. It was the perfect first date. We were in no hurry. Sometimes we went to the cinema or to dinner. Once we went to Katie Elder's bar, where Brendan's old band was performing. It was fun. The vocalist noticed him in the crowd and invited everyone to applaud. We had our own place in the park where we had picnics. He asked me to dance, and it was the best date ever. I laughed at his dance moves, but he didn't care, especially when they played slow songs. I wrapped my arms around his neck, pressed myself against him, and laid my head on his chest. I guess I closed my eyes. Several times men came up to me and asked if they could dance with them. Brendan looked at me, and I shook my head every time. I don't mind if you want, he said. Although, to be honest, I wouldn't like it if you slow danced with someone else. I smiled. The only guy I want to dance with is sitting right in front of me. He never rushed intimacy, and to be honest, I was starting to get a little nervous. That night after the dance date, he leaned over to kiss me on the cheek again. But I grabbed his face with both hands, turned him towards me, and kissed him on the lips. He froze in surprise, but only for a moment. I heard him make a low sound in his throat, and then his arms wrapped around me. I hugged his neck, and we probably would have stood there forever if Mom hadn't blinked the light on the porch. We both burst out laughing. "Good night, Mom," Brendan shouted. Then he turned to me. "Thank you, Sophia." It was unexpected. I smiled. I felt like we had taken a huge step forward, but little did I know that life was going to test us. Brendan. One day Jeff invited me to lunch, and it's impossible to refuse the boss. And I wouldn't. Over the years of work, we became close, and he was a mentor to me. Eating lunch together was quite common, but this time his wife was with us. "Thanks for joining, Brendan. Listen, I have a favor to ask of you." Jeff never liked to give orders. He always formulated them in the form of requests. "Look, we have a meeting with one of our suppliers next week, and as a sign of good faith, I said that we would come to them. This is in Dallas. Sorry, Brendan, normally I do this myself, but it's our anniversary, and if I miss it, Karen will kill me. Can I count on you?" "Of course, no problem. And congratulations, by the way. How old is it?" 33 years of marital bliss," he grinned at his wife. "I can't even believe it." "Damn, did you marry her when she was still in school?" I laughed. Karen blushed and playfully slapped my arm. Jeff laughed and hugged her. Almost. The day before the trip, I took Lark to Luz. Sophia was still at work, so I just told Luz that I'd probably be back later that evening if that wasn't a problem. I got to Dallas in 3 hours, checked into a hotel, quickly had dinner at a restaurant, and returned to my room. I called Sophia. "Hello, how are you doing there? Is Lark behaving well?" Of course, for Mom, she is always an angel. "Do you want to talk to her?" "Certainly." Lark happily chattered about her activities with her grandmother and then handed the phone to Sophia. We talked for a couple of minutes, outlined plans for the weekend, and wished each other good night. As I feared, the day turned out to be long, with many meetings. We worked until almost 7 in the evening, deciding to finish everything today so as not to put it off until tomorrow. By the time I left Dallas with takeout, it was already around 8 p.m. I called Luz and told her I was on my way. She offered to leave Lark with her for the night, but I said that I missed my girl too much and would come for her. When I arrived at the house, it was already after 11. Sophia was not there, which seemed strange to me. Luz just said that she had to leave. I put a sleepy Lark in her car seat and was about to get behind the wheel when I saw another car pull into the driveway behind me. The door opened, and in the light of the cabin I saw Sophia. She leaned over and hugged the driver. My stomach sank. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. Sophia got out of the car and noticed me. She smiled and waved. I angrily slammed the car door and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw her smile turn into confusion. Then she raised her hand to her lips and ran after me. A minute later, the phone rang, but I just turned it off. The next day, I didn't feel like going to work at all, but I had to report to Jeff about the meeting and hand over copies of the contracts that I had brought. He immediately realized that something was wrong with me, but did not say anything. I returned to my office and tiredly sank into a chair. There were already several voice messages on my work phone, and my secretary said that Sophia called 3 times, sounded upset, and really asked me to call her back. I ignored all of this, until my office door opened and Luz walked in. I was stunned. She never came to my work. Sherry, my secretary, stood behind her, apologizing. "I'm sorry, Mr. Barnes. I told her that you didn't want to be disturbed, but—" "It's okay, Sherry." Luz was dressed in her Sunday best. I stood up and offered her coffee or something, but she just looked at me with an unreadable expression on her face. "Brendan," she finally said, "you've been like a son to me since the day you married Sophia. Even after the divorce, you always remained a part of our family. But now I'm very disappointed with you." She looked at me disapprovingly. "Sophia is at home now, crying because she knows that you are thinking about her. But you didn't even give her a chance to explain. You just ran away like a little boy. But I saw how she was with that man. She dressed so beautifully." I tried to justify myself. "You only saw what you wanted to see. And that's why I'm so disappointed. Now think about what I said, and in the evening I'm waiting for you at my place for dinner. Don't be late." She turned around and left. At exactly 6:30 p.m., I knocked on Luz's door. She opened it, took Lark's hand, and silently led her inside. Walking past the kitchen, she pointed to a chair. "Sit down." I sat down. Luz led Lark into another room. A few minutes later, Sophia came into the kitchen and sat down opposite me. Her eyes were red from crying, but she looked calm. "Brendan," she began, "I know what you think you saw. I want to tell you what happened, and then I will have something else to say. Please let me finish." I opened my mouth, but she raised her hand to stop me. "First of all, I really feel guilty for you. I should have called you, but everything happened so suddenly, and you were in meetings all day. That's my fault. I could have at least left a message, and then this wouldn't have happened." She paused to take a sip of water. "When I came to work, my boss said that there would be an important event in the evening, and the person who was supposed to represent the company suddenly fell ill, and both he and his wife, so he asked me, but he actually made it clear that it was off the table. I needed to go instead. He asked if I could find a last-minute date." She sighed. "Normally, I would have called you, but you were in Dallas." That's what I said. Then he asked if there was anyone in the office whom I would be willing to take as an escort. She took another sip of water. I thought about it and said that Fred Couples would suit me. He is one of our agents, an experienced specialist, and he has been married for a long time. She looked me straight in the eyes. And before you ask, yes, I also wondered why the boss didn't just send Fred and his wife. But he explained that since that couple couldn't go, he decided it was a good opportunity for me. At such events, you can make useful contacts and strengthen your reputation. The very fact that he chose me may mean that he is grooming me for promotion. She shrugged. Anyway, he said he'd talk to Fred. Fred agreed, and we agreed. He offered to pick me up and then take me home, since I live with him along the way. She looked at me again. We went to the event, had a good time, but essentially we were just doing our job. All you saw was how he brought me home. She fell silent. I swallowed. Sophia, I'm so sorry. I overreacted. Yes, that's right. Her voice trembled. And after that, you just ignored me. He didn't even let me explain. Now she was crying again, and I felt even worse than the day before. You're right. You're right. I was an idiot, and you didn't deserve it. All I can do is ask for forgiveness and hope that you forgive me. I remembered how 5 years ago I myself said that I would never forgive her, and the irony of this situation hit me straight to the soul. She wiped her tears and looked at me. I don't know, Brendan. I really don't know. And here's why. Yes, we were both wrong. But my mistake was that I didn't tell you where I was going. And your mistake is that you don't trust me. You said you forgave me, but now I'm not sure anymore. She took a deep breath. Brendan, I know I said I could just be your friend. But I lied. Damn it, I lied. I can't just be your friend. I love you, and it hurts me from this constant marking of time. Her voice broke, but she continued. I want you back. Fully, entirely. Here, I said it. She exhaled and shook her head in relief. I said this, and it made me feel better. I looked at her, unable to utter a word. She took my hands. But if you can't trust me, then there's no point. I thought you believed me when I swore I'd never hurt you again. I thought you saw how I changed. I wanted to say that I believed her, but the words got stuck in my throat. Apparently, I haven't fully dealt with this yet. If you can't trust me, if you can't let go of the past, then we can't start again. She leaned back tiredly. I felt tears rolling down my face. Sophia, please believe me when I say I'm terribly sorry. I really thought we were moving forward. I was starting to fall in love with you again. I was careful, but I didn't regret anything. I fell silent, realizing that my action clearly showed that there were still problems. Can I make you a promise? She nodded. You said that conversations with a psychologist helped you. I think I should try it too. You suggested that I talk to your doctor. Is that still valid? She nodded. Then here is my promise. Give me a month. You decide for yourself whether we will see each other or not. But in a month, I will give you the answer. I took that month and spent a lot of time talking with Dr. Morgan. Sophia said she loved me, but decided that we should spend this time apart. I agreed. A month later, I returned to the house. Lark ran joyfully inside, shouting, Abuela, Tia Sophia, I missed you. Luz picked her up and sighed heavily. Dios mío, you're getting so big. But she kissed Lark on the cheek and then gave me a significant look before going into the other room with her. Sophia looked at me and smiled timidly. I took a step towards her, then 2 more, and then quickly wrapped my arms around her. I missed you, I whispered. She raised her face to me, and I kissed her. Of course, not everything was perfect. Sometimes there were moments that hurt both of us, but now we knew what to pay attention to and always tried to talk about everything. But overall, we were getting closer. The first time we made love after so many years apart, it was even better than I remembered. We both changed, matured, and the combination of the new and the familiar turned out to be simply magical. After that, she clung to me, crying. I was alarmed. What's happened? Nothing, she sobbed, clinging to me even tighter. These are tears of happiness. I ran my hand through her hair. I've dreamed about this for so long, honey. I love you so much. We fell asleep in each other's arms. The wedding this time was much more modest, but we didn't care. Luz was crying, Jason was trying to pretend he wasn't moved, and Jeff and Karen were just sitting there beaming with happiness. Among the guests were our family and friends. I called Carrie's mom to let her know, and she also cried, but sincerely wished me happiness. "Carrie would want this for you, Brendan," she said. I invited her to visit my granddaughter, and she promised that she would definitely come. When the ceremony began, Lark was delighted. She spun merrily, scattering petals. Having reached the altar, she ran up to me and said in a whisper, "Here, Dad," and handed me the rings. "Thank you, honey," I whispered back. "Now go to Grandma, okay?" She nodded and ran towards Luz, and I raised my head and saw her. She was just as beautiful as the first time. Sophia walked towards me arm in arm with her brothers. They handed it to me, smiling. They both kissed my sister on the cheek, and Hector playfully patted me on the shoulder. "It's high time, brother," he said. We turned to each other. "Well, here we are again," I chuckled. Sophia simply smiled. By the end of the evening, Sophia and I were slow dancing. I held Lark in my arms. Her tiny hands were on our shoulders, and she smiled happily. Then she looked at Sophia. "I don't remember my mother very well, because I was still very little, but my dad said that she was looking at us from heaven." Then she turned to me. "When I get to heaven too, will she become my mother again?" I nodded, fighting back my tears. "Yes, honey, she will always be your mom." "Okay, that's good," she nodded, considering my words. And then she turned her gaze to Sophia, her small eyebrows furrowed in concentration. "But are you still my aunt now?" Sophia gave me a confused look. I just shrugged. "Good luck," I whispered in her ear. She immediately stepped on my foot. But before Sophia could answer, my daughter made up her mind. "I think you're mine now, Mama Sophia." And she really became one. A few months later, we learned that Lark was about to have a little brother. We decided to name him Miguel. Subscribe to our channel so that your love doesn't cheat on you, and go ahead and listen to the next story, because this story is nothing compared to the next one. If you're under 18, don't even think click to the next one.